Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. A week ago, Tyson Fury's promoter Frank Warren was singing from the rooftops the virtues and extolling the benefits of this co-promotional deal that Tyson Fury has signed on to with ESPN and Top Rank. A week later, he's trying to defend it. Obviously feeling like he's coming under a bit of heat here from fans that this Wilder and Fury rematch is no longer happening next. Potentially it will happen down the track, but there is no guarantees, but it's definitely not happening next. And some fans aren't happy about that. So he's gone and penned a column saying, "Wilder fight delayed, not ducked." That is the headline. So the column itself, I perfectly understand why there has been a certain amount of hand-wringing amongst boxing fans over the decision to temporarily abort the planned rematch between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Fans rightly want to see the best fight the best at the optimum time, and that's really interesting phrasing, isn't it? The optimum time. I think they just want to see, fans want to see the best face the best, period. Not so much about the optimum time, because I'm sure that phrasing there is going to become crucial in what's about to come next. So the next bit, as does everybody else in the business, but it is what it is, a business. And our new broadcast and promotional partners in the US want to maximize the potential of what is a great heavyweight showdown by placing it later in the year. And there it is. That's the penny dropping. It's all about money. It's not about the best facing the best. It's about making the most money. Clear as day there. Thanks, Frank. Nobody is avoiding anybody. This is the fight Tyson wants, and we want, and the occasion won't suffer from being shifted from May, June time to the autumn. Someone should have edited that sentence. The magnitude of such an epic showdown will only increase. I'll just interrupt there. There's a bit of a debate about that among fans, because I was really amped and interested to see the rematch immediately, straight away, but given what had happened. It's kind of, I think I could liken it to like Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora. That fight there, the rematch, I wanted to see that immediately after they fought at the back end of 2016. And when they didn't fight next and that sort of just drifted, I sort of lost a bit of interest in it. And I actually think we actually have to consider that could happen with this rematch. It really depends, what happens with both these guys now, because if they have losses or subpar performances, or just things go in a different direction, some of the luster around that rematch, it may just sort of come off that, and maybe people won't want to see it as much as they do right now. Back to the column, ESPN, who have made a significant investment to join the heavyweight party, along with our US co-promotional partners Top Rank, want to stage an interim fight for Tyson in order to introduce him to his new platform and audience, as well as increasing his exposure stateside. It was something that was discussed when we signed up to align Tyson Fury with ESPN, and I fully accept and acknowledge the logic behind the move. I think most people do that. People can see the logic there. ESPN is a much bigger platform than any of the others that are sort of out there at the moment in the United States in terms of sports broadcasting, at least. I think there were some stats that were up on social media the other day or the other week. ESPN, something like 86 million subscribers, and I think Showtime was like 20 or 30 million. So that's So that kind of gives you an indication that, ESPN is a very big platform. So I don't disagree with what he's saying, that, building the fight and the audience is something that ESPN would want. It's not necessarily something that fans want, given that we were a pen stroke away from that fight being made. Tyson Fury had a contract for 50-50 sitting on his desk, and it went unsigned. Frank Warren continues, "Our original and well-documented intention was to head straight into the rematch, but the goalposts have moved with the strengthening of Tyson's hand by linking up with such a major US player, and the strategy has altered." Couple of points there. Has it really strengthened in terms of this rematch? Because as I reported in another video, Deontay Wilder is now saying, well, actually, Tyson Fury is below Anthony Joshua in the pecking order of fights that I want next. And maybe that will be Wilder's retribution here. Maybe the talk of a Tyson Fury fight with Deontay Wilder for a rematch just ends up being that, just talk. because there is nothing that Tyson Fury and ESPN, from what we can tell, can make Deontay Wilder force him into that fight. And given Deontay Wilder is a very prideful guy and he's sort of been broadsided here, he may feel a bit wounded by it, and some of the comments that he's making indicate that Tyson Fury isn't as such a priority as he was before. The column continues, and this is really selling and ramming home the ESPN thing. And don't get me wrong here. It's a great deal for Tyson Fury, and I think he should make as much money in boxing while he can, because ultimately, he doesn't have long in the sport. None of these guys do. So financial considerations are a massive part of it. I can't begrudge him signing that deal. But I did want that fight next, and I think many other people feel the same way, that that was something that they wanted to see next, not necessarily, in 6 months' time, in a year, or potentially now, never. ESPN is viewed in 85 million homes across the USA, which is an incredible reach to create awareness of Tyson's personality and boxing prowess. He will have ample opportunity to engage with his new audience, and when the Wilder rematch is ultimately broadcast on ESPN pay-per-view, the numbers and revenues from the fight will dwarf those from the original event. Like it or not, at the end of the day, the fighters want to be paid well because it's a dangerous fight for both of them, and they obviously will want to maximize their earnings. And that runs a little counter to some of what Deontay Wilder is saying. He's saying it's not about just throwing money at me for me to accept a deal. He's turned down the ESPN deal, which he said was effectively 4 fights. He said it's not about money, and I don't necessarily want to try go out for as much money as possible. I can't take it with me when I die. He said he's got his own things going on, and I just don't know if Frank Warren and Tyson Fury and others have, even though they've sort of thought they're going to have better bargaining power and negotiating power for a potential rematch. I mean, the fight was already made. I mean, they may not have wanted it to be on Showtime, but they've, opted to go with ESPN. They've put the spanner in the works. It's not happening next. Shelley Finkel has been very clear. Look, we're not handing him over to ESPN. We're not going to let go of him. He's not going to go over there in any promotional capacity. So Frank Warren continues. So that is the thinking behind this move, and I'm fully on board with it. It won't do Wilder any harm either, and he can too build on increased interest in his talents generated by the first fight. A few of my comments to various media on Wednesday have been subject to some inevitable topspin by certain sections, and I certainly don't blame anyone for the delay in making the fight. There is no blame attached to anyone regarding the revised strategy for Tyson, and all I said was my original preference was to proceed with the planned rematch and put right the injustice he suffered on the cards in December. Well, that might have been the original plan, but plans have changed, and this rematch now, it's not necessarily about the original injustice, as Frank Warren puts it. It's been made all about money, and that is very much clear. It's not about righting the wrong. It's about, making as much money down the road as possible. And if the injustice is righted then, well, all well and good, but it could have been done right now. And I think that's what many people are a little bit bitter about. The fact is, however, is that Tyson is now in a stronger position to avoid a repeat of such a miscarriage, because he will be the home fighter with the biggest US network firmly in his corner. Now, I'm going to wade in on that really quickly, because is that just spin from Frank Warren there? Because technically he's not the home fighter, he's fighting in the United States, but also, is he effectively saying in some way that ESPN is going to have some sway over the outcome of the fight if it goes to the cards, or that there is going to be some influence over the judges? Because that really, the way that it's framed, it can certainly be taken that way, that there's going to be a hometown nod to Tyson Fury if it ever goes to the cards. That's the inference from what he's saying there. I mean, isn't some of this and the way that the judges are selected, who is actually there and their competence? That's more down to, what the commission does, whoever the relevant commission for the area that they're fighting in. That's not something that Tyson Fury or Frank Warren or ESPN or Top Rank is handpicking, because if they are, there is something actually wrong there. So I just kind of don't like the tenor of some of those statements. It shouldn't make a difference, but you take every small margin and advantage you can in boxing to ensure a level playing field. See, even that is a bit, contradictory. You take every small margin and advantage you can to ensure a level playing field. it seems to be indicating the opposite, that you're taking those margins and advantages to get an advantage, as opposed to a level playing field. Another key factor where Tyson is concerned is he wants to keep busy and have his hard work and training and superb conditioning rewarded with being an active heavyweight. Playing a slightly longer game in terms of world title showdowns will enable him to do this, while at the same time building a viewership and fan base across America. He is in this for the long haul and is determined to reclaim the titles to reinforce his status as the #1 heavyweight in the world. Well, he might need to have quite a few of those fights on ESPN before to get into position to fight for those titles, and even then, no guarantees that it can be on ESPN because purse bids and broadcasting issues. I mean, some of these fights just may never happen. He's probably going to have to get into a mandatory and hope a top rank in ESPN win those belts. That might be the only way to get a title shot now. I sort of don't really like the way that some of this has been playing out, but, you know, Frank Warren trying to say that people are spinning it a certain way. Well, he's just given us, chapter and verse from the spin handbook there. Okay, I'll wrap it up there, but what did you make of this? I thought this is certainly a reasonably well-crafted piece of spin. I don't necessarily agree with it all. I mean, the fight was there. They could have had it. This is all about money at the end of the day, and I guess it always is in boxing. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.